disability versus other cultures. And I don't know if that's enough of a question, but I am curious. Are there a lot of differences?
There are.
Welcome to the Kooler Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and I'm excited to have you join me as I interview community members and business leaders from the communities in which I live, work, and serve through my business Kooler Garage Doors. We're going to bring you highlights on characters in our communities. Why? Because community matters, and I want to know more about who is behind our business and leadership in order to understand and support the community fabric that our relationships make up. And collectively, we can build stronger communities that support our lifestyles, our youth, and our health.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Koolers Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kuehlhorn, and today I am joined by Grand Junction, President and CEO of Strive out of Grand Junction, Colorado. Grant, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Matt. Appreciate it.
Yeah, as we jump in here, I'd love to get an introduction from you on Strive.
Sure. So Strive has been in the Grand Valley, Grand Junction, Colorado for over 50 years. We're primarily an agency, a nonprofit who helps people with developmental disabilities, essentially from birth to end of life. So we work with families who may have a child that's actually in the NICU and help them navigate what's going to happen now once they go home, types of therapies, assistance they're going to need, resources. And we do a lot of residential programs for folks as well. So group homes, host homes, which is kind of like a foster care type system for adults. And we do a lot of day programming, employment programs, and all sorts of stuff that's really based on community inclusion. That's really what we strive to do, is get people a part of the community. That's incredibly important to us.
Gotcha.
So in a nutshell,
Awesome.
High level.
Yeah, no, that's a good nutshell, and already way more than what I had initially kind of gleaned.
It's
like pretty broad.
There's a lot.
Right?
We do a ton
NICU
of stuff.
Yeah, awesome. All right, we're going to come back to that, but I want to know a little bit of your story. Where did you grow up?
Sure. Not in Grand Junction. I actually grew up in upstate New York, closer to Canada than New York City, in a place called Queensbury. It's kind of on the Vermont, New York border, halfway up, essentially.
Okay.
Grew up there, and, real active lifestyle with my family, really spent a lot of time in the mountains, hiking, skiing, all that kind of good stuff. Translated well to Colorado. But I moved to Alaska after college, had an internship in college up in Alaska. And that's really what kind of got me hooked into what I'm doing now.
Gotcha.
And I started working with an organization that really did a lot of what Strive did and what Strive does. And it, I guess maybe to back up a little bit, a friend of mine growing up, his sister had developmental disability, and it really kind of opened my eyes to the injustices that a lot of folks who had developmental disabilities really experience in their life, going through school and all that kind of stuff, bullying. And it made me really feel like when I was growing up, I really want to do something that helped people as I got older. So that was a kind of a driving force growing up and having that experience. Went from New York to Alaska, been in Colorado now for, 12 years now.
Right on. Has it always been Grand Junction as far as your Colorado?
No, bounced around the state a little bit. Went to from Alaska, moved to Golden, lived there for a short period of time. Did not like the sprawl of the city and all that, so my wife and I moved up to Eagle County for another short period of time, and then we ended up in Grand Junction. That's where her family lives, and we live 2 blocks from her folks, and it's been a wonderful thing ever since.
That's cool.
Yeah.
What part of Alaska did you spend time in?
I was out in a place called Dillingham. It's in Bristol Bay. It's right above the Aleutian Islands on the west coast of Alaska. It's a small little fishing village.
Yeah.
And I got to run, or I was what do they call me? Community coordinator for an agency like Strive up there. That's where I had an internship in college. And then they hired me on after college and lived there for several years, providing services and supports to folks. It was like a 300-mile radius from where I was. So I get to fly on these little planes from village to village, helping families who had kiddos essentially with developmental disabilities. It was an amazing experience.
Did you ever get up to Toke?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yep, a couple times.
I spent a summer up there. We used to work with a bunch of youth, but we would take relatively privileged youth and do community-based work with them. So we had like a full month with maybe 24, kids out of New York and all over the country, really. But we would live in the Athabascan community centers, and it was pretty cool. But
that's a tiny spot up there,
Alaska. It's tiny.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful area, though. It's gorgeous up there.
Yeah. I would imagine that Lucian Island area is beautiful as well.
It was absolutely a wonderful place to really kind of get my feet under me, as far as what I want to do in my career. And it hooked me, really seeing how folks with developmental disabilities were treated in those communities was incredible. Everybody was fully included in the communities. Lots of respect and admiration for those folks. And it was an amazing experience that I have kind of tried to, bring wherever I've worked since. It's one of the things that's really near and dear to my heart is making sure that folks with developmental disabilities are included in their communities. So it's been a wonderful journey.
What a beautiful mission. What did you study in college?
Anthropology.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting.
It was a focus
I
on...
guess in some ways...
it was a focus on disability across culture, which is how I got my internship up in Alaska, working with that organization up there. So
Yeah. So I guess, curiosity, how different is our culture with disability versus other cultures? And I don't know if that's enough of a question, but I am curious. Are there a lot of differences?
There are. I really found, nothing against Grand Junction, Mesa County area. I really have grown to love this place and really have a lot of respect for the folks that live here. And it's not just here, but I think as people in Alaska call, down here is the lower 48. Where I feel like we're quite behind the times in how people with developmental disabilities are treated and kind of viewed in society. Where I lived up in Alaska, like I was saying, it's really like community inclusion is not really like a thing. It's just something that's inherently, exists and with the culture. And it was Yupik Eskimo is what the folks called themselves. And it was, I think 98% people who were Native Alaskans and 2% outsiders where I lived. So really the inclusion was just inherently part of the culture, which was an amazing thing to see because growing up in New York, it definitely was not. And here in the Grand Valley, it's definitely not, but it's way better, miles ahead from where, when I grew up in upstate New York, some 25-ish years ago after graduating, high school and all that kind of good stuff. But that's really what drives me is trying to change that culture locally. And it's not just, a mission of one person. It's really the mission of Strive and always has been, but it's something that, we've started to really kick it into high gear. And one of the things I really appreciate about this community and that I really saw when I first moved here several years ago is how collaborative this place is. We're, just like yourself, you guys, we're all removed from the Front Range where everything happens, a state-funded agency, we kind of get imposed upon us sometimes, things that work wonderfully in the Front Range, but maybe not so much out here. So the communities come together to really work together, whether it's all the human service agencies, nonprofits, county government, we work so well together and it's out of necessity. And that's something I really, really appreciate about here specifically. So it makes our mission of getting folks included in the community that we support way easier now because of that collaborative effort that goes on locally.
Yeah, I would imagine that's just super significant. You're referencing, the point of inclusion and culture together. So what is it either in the culture that aids in the inclusion or takes away from that? Like, what have you, I guess what I'm asking is like, what are some of the challenges and some of the unique opportunities that you see?
Yeah. I think, here, locally in the culture that we all live in, I think there's a lot of fear that exists and kind of the unknown of, working and being around somebody with a developmental disability. A lot of people, especially folks, my age and older, we didn't have the inclusive classrooms. We didn't have a lot of that, to begin with. So you don't have the experience working with people or being around folks with developmental disabilities unless you've, had a family member or a friend, things like that. And it's not inherent that, somebody with a developmental disability is a person just like everybody else. They deserve the same rights, freedoms and, ability to live a full life just like everybody else does. So I think it's, there's some uncomfortableness, I think, that comes with it with some folks if you haven't been around somebody, because our society, has really sheltered and institutionalized and all that kind of stuff folks with developmental disabilities or severe mental illness for a long, long time, the duration of our history. People were kind of shoved off into the corner.
That's true.
And the federal government and the state government have done a ton to, counteract that. Getting rid of the large institutions, even some of our group homes that are, have up to 8 people, in each house. So a lot of that is actually starting to go away. And the more, desired way for folks to have a residential services, these host homes, which is like foster care. It's essentially a family welcoming somebody into their home and providing all their care for them, where you're not dependent on shift workers, coming in to provide your care. So you have a constantly revolving door of people coming in and out of your life. You've got that stability. So, it's changed a lot, but we still have a long ways to go, specifically when it comes to like employment opportunities. That's our next big hurdle, something that we're really working heavily on.
I get it.
Yeah.
Part of it is just ignorance, right? And just not any kind of bad term ignorance, but just in not knowing.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
Not knowing how to interact, not knowing maybe the right questions, and
sure.
And maybe it's more about a person's internal discomfort versus any potential thing that plays in that interaction.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. And when we see a ton of success, right now working with businesses locally, that's been one of our huge pushes now that we're kind of getting out of the pandemic. We had to push pause on all sorts of, amazing initiatives over the past couple of years because of the pandemic. But, as we're coming out of it, we're starting to work with some local businesses that as soon as they take on their, I guess to back up here, we've got some agreements with a couple local businesses where they're having some of our staff and crews of folks that we support go in and help them out in their business and do jobs that they need to have done. And Enstrom's Candies, local business is one of them. Power Pro Fishing Line is another one. And they've all said, as soon as our folks come in and start working alongside their current employees, the staff's morale just boosts through the roof. Their preconceived notions of what a person with developmental disabilities is goes out the window, immediately. And they see how wonderful these folks are, how motivated they are, because they so badly want to be part of our community and an equal member in it. They see how hard they try, how productive they are, and just how it really just boosts the joy of the business. And hear that all the time, and it's an amazing thing to hear. So
yeah. What a great win-win-win-win-win scenario.
It is for sure.
For those that don't know, being an employer maybe, or just community member in general, like what might be some specifics, to either an individual's disability? Are there common disabilities? Is there anything that can be like real specific to it? I'm just trying to see, like, sure, in those specifics, could there be some potential stigma that could be broken down?
Yeah, there is a never-ending variety of ways people are different. And that's like what we really like to stress to everybody is, they're people. And we hate to label folks, even by, saying, developmental disability and calling people disabled. But, we work with a lot of younger folks nowadays with who are on the autism spectrum, there's, we provide different training for our staff. When we go work with businesses, we, they know that our staff are very well versed in if there's somebody were to have a behavioral type of situation, if someone's getting overwhelmed, like anybody does on a job, especially when you're brand new working someplace, somebody who we support may have, some extra challenges when it comes to that. And our staff are so skilled at being able to help them navigate so they are successful. And eventually our staff can kind of just back off and, our folks can just, they, just like everybody else, they can get into their routine, know what's going on and do their job. But, I'm not really sure how to answer that question fully, I guess.
Yeah. And I hear you on there's the autism spectrum, but there's just the spectrum of humanity.
Yeah.
And, when I was working with the Adaptive Sports Center up here in Crested Butte, we would work with cognitive learning disabilities and physical disabilities. And our language was just, they're people with different abilities. Yep. And it was our job as guides to facilitate whatever type of adaptation was needed.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So what I'm hearing is, especially for potential employers, and I think this is really cool, and even community members, like, it's just having a different approach, a different ability, and maybe an adaptation. So I'm confirming this with you, but if an individual with a different ability was coming into a place of employment, there would be that staff support.
Sure.
Especially early on. Is that how that gets facilitated?
Yeah, we do a lot of job coaching. And, our hope really is to, through working with all these businesses, and we've worked with, we have two real, really grounded, centered, businesses that we're working with a lot right now. But we have a lot of conversations with other businesses. And the whole idea would be to get these folks, these businesses, to the point where they don't really even need our support. Maybe some job coaching up front, but eventually they're going to, when somebody comes in to apply, whether they, they have a developmental disability or not, they're not going to question. It's not going to be like, I don't know. It's this person's probably got a lot of stuff that they can offer us as well. So it kind of gets that stigma away. And, folks with developmental disabilities are seen just like everybody else because it's really eye-opening for the businesses we work with. As soon as they get these folks out on their factory floor or into the the milieu with the rest of their employees, like, wow, totally underestimated their abilities. And just for a little example, when we started working with Power Pro, we had about 6 guys going in with 1 staff member to tackle these couple of tasks that they had for us, our guys, and they assumed it was going to take them 3 or 4 months to do it all. They knocked it out of the park in 3 weeks. And they're like, holy cow. Well, we need to really kind of aim higher now. Now we know exactly what you guys are capable of. And they were just blown away. And these are businesses who traditionally would be using temp agencies to help fill, voids and vacancies in their employment. So they're using us instead of using temp agencies because they know our guys are going to come ready to work every day, super motivated, very efficient, and it just makes their business better.
Yeah. What's in it that lights you up? Like, what wakes you up in the morning when you have one of those days and you're just in the flow, that's it? What is it that juices you?
So, kind of just what I just explained really has been one of the more rewarding things, hearing, Enstrom's Candies, which has been in this town forever, a huge part of this community. And to hear them say, that, their staff morale, is just through the roof, that, they're turning over more product. They're able to get their job done. And it's all because of the folks we support and them just giving them a chance. Yesterday I had one of those moments too. I met with local community college here at WCCC, Western Colorado Community College, and also the food bank of the Rockies. And their willingness to sit down with us to talk about different opportunities to be partners in our community, organizations that in the past we never would have thought to reach out to, whether it's volunteer opportunities, or employment opportunities, or getting their students to come and work and intern here, to be part of our organization and gain some experience from us and the folks we support. Having more and more of those opportunities actually come about has been, one of the reasons why I just love coming here, because people really are it's taken a while to get here, but it's, as one business talks to another business, or an organization in the community says, hey, you've got this issue going on, go give Strive a call. I bet you they could help you out. I bet you they could send a crew of their folks, or they've got some amazing people working for them. They could probably help you out. Those types of things are really meaningful, and they happen more and more, which is great.
That's incredible. That's a big shout out to you and your team, and the 50 years of building, right? Yeah. So how big is Strive? What does the team structure look like?
Oh boy. We're probably around 250 for employees, 250 for employees. We do have a lot of folks that contract with us as well, our host home providers. I believe we have roughly 90 of them right now. So we're a large organization, and we help hundreds of folks here in the community. So it's a growing organization, and it's fluctuated a bit during the pandemic, and kind of as we've started to ease out of providing group home services into more of the community-based host home services. That's become way more popular. So as group homes have become less popular, we've closed a few homes down over the last couple of years that we've turned into host homes. We've rented them out to people in the community who want to be host home providers, but it's so hard to find housing in general right now out here, and it's so expensive that we're able to rent our group homes at a reduced rate to folks who want to be a host home provider. So
unplanned question really, but I'm curious, did COVID create a number of setbacks, and or were there unique opportunities at the same time?
Yeah, I think both. One of the biggest setback, and we're still experiencing it, is having enough employees. Period. And we're not. I know we're not alone in that. I talk to my colleagues around town and around the state, really. Whether it's in the developmental disability service field, or folks who run larger assisted livings for seniors and things like that. Everybody is struggling to have enough people, and not to go down too big of a rabbit hole, but and a lot of it just comes to inflation, and we don't pay enough, and we can't, because we're fully funded by the state and federal government, and we can only pay as much as they give us to pay people. We do fundraising and things like that, but it doesn't even come close to filling that real gap where we want to pay sustainable, livable wages for folks. But the caregiver field is so far behind. When we lose people to McDonald's, who's paying $18 an hour starting salary, Target $20 an hour, things like that. We just can't compete, unfortunately. But the folks that do come to work for us, they've got a heart of gold, and they do amazing work. But yeah, that's been probably the biggest setback for us, is not having enough employees to do absolutely everything we want to do. We have so many different ways that we want to grow programmatically, but we're kind of stifled right now by our level of staffing. We'll get there. It just takes longer. But that's probably the biggest setback. I think there's been a lot of weird blessings in disguise that have come from the pandemic. I'm trying to, and I know like several occasions we've been like, oh my gosh, like pandemic is absolutely horrible. It's ravaged the world, but like these little things here and there pop up every once in a while. We're like, man, like things that you never would have thought of or taken the time to sit back and think about. It's given us some space to really do a lot of, I think, of like self-reflecting on our organization and where we want to go with it. When I was hired on a few years ago, I think I've been here just over 4 years now in this role. I was hired on to kind of modernize how we provide our services. Had a ton of, passion and, eagerness to get into it. And then boom, the pandemic hit. And instead of just jumping in and starting to change a bunch of things right away, it forced us, myself specifically, to really sit back and be like, all right, we've got the time. We got nothing but time right now because, especially during the lockdown phases, having to close down our programs and push pause on so many things. It did give us the space to really think about how we wanted to move forward as an agency.
Yeah, there's always the unique opportunities and challenges.
Yeah.
All right. So what are you excited about for the next 5 to 10 years? What's happening at Strive 10 years from now?
10 years from now, boy, I would like to see this community, the businesses specifically, hiring folks that we support off the street with very little help from us, or minimal help and getting people up and running and going, and us providing more modernized programs that are 100% community inclusion based, and just providing amazing services. I don't know. I mean, we recently, in the last 2 years, we purchased a local fruit business that had been around in Palisade, Colorado, for 40 years, I think. The family sold the business to us, so we, more opportunities like that where we're providing those hands-on learning experiences, real-world experiences. In this situation, folks are making amazing Colorado fruit-based jams, jellies, salsas. We dip a lot of chocolate, dried fruit in chocolates, and all sorts of cool stuff like that, and sell a ton of it. It is unbelievably popular here. More opportunities like that. I've got a dream of opening up like a fancy donut shop on Main Street. That's my dream. I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon, but maybe 10 years. It's selfish because I just want like a voodoo donut to come to town, but so
yeah,
instead of waiting for them, I thought maybe we'd open up one ourselves and create some opportunities.
I think it's a brilliant idea. Brilliant idea. Grant, I knew you would have a heart of gold, and I was excited to chat with you. I had no idea how absolutely large Strive is, and the influence that has on a community is powerful. So, thank you for your dedication there, and to your incredibly large staff. I'm just impressed. It's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it's a great place.
For businesses and community members that want to get in touch, get involved, how do we do that?
You can go to our website, strivecolorado.org. That's the best way to do it, and it should have all sorts of good information for if you want to get in touch with myself. My phone number and my email address should be on there, along with a few of my staff members and my leadership team. We're going to be doing a pretty big overhaul on it here pretty soon, but it's going to have even more updated information on all of our programs and what we really do. And we just bought a really awesome fancy video camera that the folks that we support are learning how to use, and going to be making a lot of marketing videos, recruiting videos, and showing the awesome things we do. It's going to be super, super exciting.
Wonderful. Would you be able to highlight your top 1 to 3 needs?
Oh boy, right now, top need would be staff. We need staff for sure. We've got, like I said, an amazing group of folks that do work for us, and they're putting in a lot of extra time to make the cool things happen that we do, and provide all the amazing supports. But staffing, we need some, funding. If you ask a nonprofit and they don't, like, what do you need, and they don't say funding, it's a lot. No, I don't know. I mean, we need the community to be behind, not just Strive, but there's other agencies in our area that do very similar things to us. We all kind of have our own niche. And we support each other like crazy as well. Great support system here that we really appreciate. But we just, needing the community to get behind all of our efforts and just be super accepting of the folks we support, just like everybody else.
Yeah, love it. Well, I appreciate our conversation, and we'll certainly do our part to push this around and see what kind of awareness and support we can drum up. And again, I'm super impressed. I'm glad that we were able to connect. I look forward to future conversations, Grant. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.